Oh, okay. I muted it. Hope it's gonna echo.
Helen, can you hear me now? Oh,
Okay.
Helen, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, yeah, sorry. We were just doing some technical difficulties.
No worries.
So let me get back to my screen here. So yeah, essentially what we would be looking at, Deb, is it would essentially be in this corner. Like I said, we might be on the fringes of this basin, so we might have to do a little bit of an expansion or building out of a swale here to be able to accommodate this. But essentially what we'd be looking at is taking partial ownership here, putting our wet well, valve vault, generator, control panel in that general vicinity. But the work itself would be outside the limits of the basin. We might just have to expand that basin to accommodate what we're doing. So that's where that stands. Like I said, we can reach out to Chuck if Victoria, you send over the contact information for him and see if there's any way we can get those remaining manholes opened. Like I said, in the absence of not having any other records, we would just want to know up front. How you doing?
This is Steve. He's on the planning board. He's gonna be a member on the committee soon. He's gonna take our other planning board representatives.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
So just moving on here as far as the agenda, I know after last meeting, we talked about putting together a comparison table and a description of the two potential force main options. One being the reuse of the 8-inch on South Main Street and then slip lining as the other option. I understand, Deb, you had a board meeting and maybe got some additional feedback on that.
The selectmen like the option two.
Okay.
Do the 8-inch, use the 8-inch line as is.
Okay.
And then upsize the pump station. But I wanted to defer back also to the sewer commission because this is, their wheelhouse. So I don't know what Bob and thought, and even Steve's thought on this is that was the board's, given all the information that you had, I presented to them.
Mhm.
And they felt like because the overall construction would be cheaper. I think that existing 8-inch is an epoxy lined pipe.
Mhm.
They felt like they'd rather upsize than this, putting in the 6-inch slip line, which Mr. Zendes feels like it would be difficult to do.
Mhm.
And then down the line needing to upsize it. And I did tell them we took a lot of the surrounding flows into consideration, but that's their vote is to go with option two. So unless, like I said, the sewer committee feels strongly different to that, that's the way I would go.
So first I'd like to thank Steve for climbing on board. Mr. Tripp is an operator and at the sewer department.
Yep.
He's got a lot of good years of experience with this. So I think he brings that experience.
Sure.
Which we don't have in the Freetown Water and Sewer Department really doesn't have, because we only have two sewer customers, practically one sewer customer and one that pays Stop and Shop. The question that I had with reviewing what's done to date is, and my understanding is, a force main is obviously force, it's pumped. There's nothing that's discussed in the contracts or this plan to how the feeders are gonna go to the pumping stations. It's not being discussed. It's not part of this plan, correct?
So this plan, this expansion involves the extension along South Main Street from the Four Corners down to the main pump station on Ridge Hill Road. And then that would then be pumped from Ridge Hill Road all the way down to the Fall River Freetown town line. So our sewer shed is essentially picking up the main trunk line. And then we would leave extensions for all those side streets off South Main Street. So this first phase would be building that main trunk line from the Four Corners
down to
down to the pump station that we're showing here. It's gonna be proposed, but off Ridge Hill Road, they will have a pump station. And then from that pump station, the one that I mentioned in the memo, as far as the comparison of options, that pump station would then pump all the flow to Fall River.
So but that's gonna service from, when you say the Four Corners, from Town Hall,
That's correct.
okay?
The
That,
gravity fed
from
probably
Town
goes
Hall,
Correct.
from Town Hall to Ridge Hill Road is uphill.
No, understood.
So
There's
how does the sewage get from, so there's another pump station going in?
There's another pump station going in. So what'll happen is flow will be fed by gravity to a small pump station near Town Hall.
Correct.
That pump station will pump that flow up to High Street.
But is that line, that no pressure line, that gravity line, is that part of this plan?
That's part of this plan because it turns from gravity from High Street down to Ridge Hill Road.
Ridge Hill Road down to High Street,
That's correct. That's gravity.
correct?
From High Street to the Four Corners, you have a combination of low pressure sewer, because you're right, there is a little bit of a hill as you get up from the bridge there up to High Street. That area will be a low pressure zone. Across the bridge, when you go into the Four Corners, that'll be gravity. So everything will flow to a small pump station and then be pumped from that pump station to High Street. And again, we'd be leaving service connections along the way, along South Main Street, to be able to tie in the future.
You're gonna do a gravity line from High Street to the Four Corners. You're gonna do a gravity line from like Narrows Road to Alexandra to the pump station and pump it back.
Correct. Yeah, so as far as the and forgive me, I don't have the map in front of me, but I can pull it up on Google.
Anything you can say about gravity?
The date I haven't either, and that's why I bring it up, because the other question is that we have the existing line. We don't have an existing line going under the highway, so going under the highway, there'd be two lines, there'd be a gravity line. And it'd be the force main line.
It would just be the force main line.
Well, I was from Narrows Road.
Because
We'd be tying into the force main. No, I was gonna say from Narrows Road, we'd be leaving a stub here to tie into the force main. So
We have to at a later date, put an additional pump station.
that's correct. That would service the near. Well, I would think off Narrows Road, I mean, I haven't looked at the topography going this way, but I know there was talk about tying in some of these developments at a later date. And I mean, I think as far as this flow goes, we're accounting for that in the sizing for the 8-inch force main. And what we talked about last time is we wanted to account for any sort of potential flow that might tie into our force main, right? Because that impacts whether or not, the hydraulics make sense for an 8-inch pipe or something smaller.
it's too big. You're not gonna move.
That's correct.
That'll help.
That's correct. Yep. So as far as Narrows Road goes, the intent is not to flow by gravity from Narrows Road back to our sewer pump station. The intent was to leave a service stub off Narrows Road to the force main and tie into that point via pressure connection.
The house is like the 24 overpass going toward Narrows Road. Those are all gonna have to be force main.
The intent was not to tie in those houses as part of this project. They'd have to be pressurized unless there's another gravity fed system that would be installed at a later date, but not as part of this work. Our scope was only north of the 24 intersection going up to the Four Corners. So we were looking at that as your sewer shed.
But we're also going to opt to put a line in under 24. Put a new line in.
There'd be a new pressure line under 24,
So,
correct?
We're gonna put a new pressure line in under 24. Would it not make sense at that time to also install a low pressure line to feed that pump station on Ridge Hill Road from Narrows Road? Potentially, to have it go at least through that 24.
A separate low pressure line that would tie.
That would run so potentially from Narrows Road. We'll have to take down.
Mhm.
And that would alleviate, have to put a second pump station in on that road.
I think
Third station. Pump stations are expensive to run,
understood.
very.
Yep.
expensive.
No, I understand that. Yeah. I just don't know. You're saying by gravity put a connection from Narrows Road to our pump station, or you're saying a low pressure sewer? I don't know if by gravity we'd be able to make it work from Narrows Road. Yeah, I mean, unless, like I said, unless you have low pressure sewer system for Narrows Road, that is a low pressure line that ties in.
Yeah, I think we're gonna leave a low pressure sewer line from Narrows Road back up to Alexandria Drive.
Yeah.
Gravity, that's just not gonna work with the topography that we have.
I mean, it's definitely doable. I mean, if you wanted to run a separate low pressure sewer line back to Alexandria Drive pump station, that's doable. I just thought the easiest way to do it would be to leave a pressure stub and then connect in via Narrows Road at that intersection. But again, if I understand the concern about not having a third pump station. Again, it also goes back to the amount of flow in this 8-inch force main. You know, when we looked at this, we were struggling to get to flows that would justify a 6, let alone an 8. So, right. So,
At least when we have the ditch open going under the highway, no reason not to put some kind of a line in there, whether we hook it up on either end or not, but at least when the time comes for
Sure.
to open it up again.
yeah, and again, that can very easily be done. It's not costly at that point to just leave a separate line capped for the future if you guys want to tie into Narrows Road. It just wasn't a consideration as part of this scope because our sewer shed was always north of 24. But again, if it's something that we want to add into the design and incorporate, I have no problem with that.
I don't know what as an option, what that would add to the cost. I mean, if it's $500,000 to add that low pressure line, which I don't think it will be.
I don't think it will be either.
The
No,
hole will be there. They just have to.
exactly.
Certain distance between the pipes that.
Yep.
There's a requirement.
Yeah, the trench gets a little bit wider. You leave a spare pipe in there, just leave it capped and
Time and materials, basically.
pretty much.
Everything's
Yep.
already opened up.
Yep.
We already have permits to go into 24. We already wait the 18 months to get the permits.
Yep.
We go through all the pains. Why, I mean, it's short sighted. What's gonna happen is they're gonna look back 20 years from now. And they're gonna say, what was wrong with the Water and Sewer Commission? Us guys, that they went through this, all this money got spent. And they didn't think ahead.
Sure. Understood. Yeah, like I said, it really is a preference on you folks as far as what you want. If the preference is to make this a low pressure sewer system and tie into Alexandria Drive, absolutely. You can leave a capped line there and run it under 24 and leave it for future use. If the thought is you want to build a pump station off Narrows Road and tie into the 8-inch force main and reduce a little bit of cost, that could be done too. But again, it's based on preference and what you guys are looking for. So.
And the other question, Debbie, is, from a grant standpoint, from a money standpoint, are we limited as to what, the monies may be available sooner?
No, I wouldn't worry.
They may be available now, they may not be available 10 or 15 years down the line.
Yeah.
To open that up again.
I wouldn't worry about the grant.
Stupid not to put the
They don't
line in.
scrutinize, but as long as it's for the sewer, we don't worry about it. It'll be part of the bid package. And it'll just go in as part of the bid package. to
Yep.
do the work.
Yep. I mean, we could look at that cost and just give you the rough idea what the number would be.
Optional liquid.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, no, like I said, it can definitely be done. It's just, like I said, it wasn't part of our original plan.
Cost is, I think it's a good idea.
Just a good idea
Because the
regardless. Yeah.
cost that line would be astronomical. And you see how difficult it is right now for us to get underneath that Route 24 bridge. It's a real pain.
Mhm.
And it's very expensive.
Let's do it once and let's do it right.
So
If we're gonna
having
do
a
it.
spare line is never a bad thing. So I think it's something you just do, like whatever the cost is, you go into the project. I mean, we're talking, the cost project, the cost you put in the last, put like $16 million. Right?
Yep.
We're talking $16 million, 50 grand or whatever, it's gonna be another
Yeah,
100 grand.
Short money. Yep.
Add it to the number, Yeah. If this was a $200,000 project and we were adding $100,000, it's different, but we have such a significant cost.
Yep.
already.
Drop in the bucket to put that other line in.
Right, that's what I mean.
The cost of the pipe.
Sure.
Really?
Yep.
It makes perfect sense.
That
Whether we use it or we don't use it, doesn't matter.
We're still accounting for the flow either way. Yeah.
That corner lot to put a third pump station.
Yep. Yeah. So Steve, just for your awareness, so I just have the map pulled up here. So our pump station, we're proposing to put at the corner of Alexandra Drive and Ridge Hill Road. Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. So you're familiar with the area. So the intent is to basically collect everything by gravity to that pump station and then pump all the way down South Main into the Fall River Freetown manhole, the last manhole right at the end there. And really, like I said, the sewer shed is kind of picking up everything on this South Main Street stretch. So our first phase would be you run the trench, you have the main in the street, you leave the stubs going off the street to connect side streets and folks on that piece, and then in future phases connect those when the funding becomes available. So that's essentially the scope.
You don't see that we have to build it in 3 phases.
Yep.
I know MassWorks will give you about $4 million, I think. And then there are about 2 other grants. Originally, I thought I could get $9 million at a time.
Mhm.
So, still optimistic, those numbers, I think I can definitely get $4 or $5 million for each phase of this. And with the MBTA requirements, I may be able to get more. If our zoning doesn't pass, we're getting nothing.
Right,
So,
right.
but then we don't necessarily have the greatest need for the sewer either.
And I think you mentioned last time too, Deb, was there some special grant funding for some of the roadways that are in the floodplain that could potentially be a source of?
Rec funding, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a MEMA thing, it depends, that was more for like down by the town hall.
Okay. Yeah, so again, I mean, it's not a huge cost. I can understand the reasoning behind it. It's not a big deal. We can incorporate that as part of the design. So I think as far as the options for the force main goes, it sounds like we're leaning towards option 2, reuse of the existing 8-inch.
So that's the existing line that Karen's, and he's putting a little. Oh, it goes as far as the. 8,200 feet of 8-inch main, 8,200 feet of 8-inch pipe.
So we had put together a little comparison last time, Steve, basically kind of summarizing what the 2 options would be. You either slip line a smaller HDPE pipe inside the 8, or you reuse the existing 8. So it's about 8,200 feet. I mean, essentially what you're looking at is a little bit of it's an oversized pump station because like you said, you don't want that solids to settle out. You want to make sure you're getting good cleansing velocities in the force main. So by doing so, you know, your pump station is a little bit bigger, but you save on the ultimate cost because now you're not putting in 8,200 feet of slip line pipe. So by doing that, you know, your pump station's a little bit larger, you're pumping a little bit more flow. You have a lot of spare capacity now because now you're looking at, you know, the pump station now doesn't have to be designed for a smaller force main. Now you're trying to design for a larger force main to accommodate, you know, what you're looking for. So, so what we're getting after is, you know, once this decision gets made, we'll proceed with the design work to say, okay, we're going to reuse the existing. Likely what we'll probably do is recommend doing some sort of a pipe cleaning and inspection before we go and reuse this 8-inch pipe.
Yeah.
Just because it's been 20 years, right? I mean, we want to make sure all the bells are intact. The pipe, there's no sags or any sort of holes or anything that's formed over the years. So the recommendation would be, you know, you clean it, you inspect it, make sure it's all intact before you reuse it.
The only thing to consider is also, it's $1.5 million more. There's $1.5 million less initial expenditure.
Correct.
To use the existing pipe versus slip lining. Approximately, you know, based on today's rates, $30,000 a year. Higher operation costs.
$30,000 a year,
Yeah, for electricity.
that's for 10 years, I think.
Is that 10 year or?
I think it was, you had that number, right? Well, those came from 2 hours a day over a 10-year period.
Yeah, it's no number 4
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Yeah, and basically what we try to do here is kind of give you the options as far as what the pump sizes would be.
Right. So it's $3,000 a year in differential, which is, all right, but it didn't,
You really don't want to do that slip line unless you really.
yeah,
have to.
yeah, I don't see the
Two
need.
pipes, the 5 people's houses in there, now you have to cut through a steel pipe without cutting, you know, the pipe inside, but it's still coming down.
Yeah, where does it
So you
say?
don't have to do it every house along the road, you have to cut into that, so it's.
I think even if we were to slip line, the intent wouldn't be to try to tie people directly into the line. It would be still to kind of collect people in a centralized system, either into a low pressure or gravity, and then tie in at an intersection, like I said, at Narrows Road where you have a stub dedicated for that reason. But I agree with you. If you were to do a direct tie-in, it's not pleasant.
We just did that,
Not pleasant. Yeah.
And Jim says he doesn't think a 6-inch would go in there.
well, it's not gonna fit inside that, you would have to go to the forum.
It wouldn't be able to fit if inside, especially when you go under those bends in the roadway, where there's culvert crossings, utility crossings, HDP pipe, and while it has a lot of flexibility, there's no way you're getting pipe to fit in that manner. Now, if it's a straight run of pipe, yeah, you can get it to fit. But if you're trying to go underneath culverts, underneath utilities, you're gonna have to do a whole new dig pit, on each end.
You could get 500 feet in at a time, but because of the bend in the pipe.
Right.
Every 500 feet, you'd have to be doing it down. I don't know. I think overall, there's no great perfect situation, but I think the 8-inch seems to make the most sense from what I have been doing.
Are there manholes along the road, do you know?
There is, yeah, there's a number of high point air relief manholes and then low point cleanout manholes. I believe the pipe is just run through there. I don't think they actually put in valves.
We're not sure. We're hoping to get some photos from the survey, but we haven't seen any yet.
They were filled with water, weren't they?
Some of them were filled with water.
Yeah. I think what Resendes did was just because the line wasn't being used, they just ran the pipe straight through the manhole. With the intent that at some point down the road, when that line was to be reused, they put in an air release valve. Or they put in a clean out valve to. So that'd be our intent here. Even if we were to reuse the existing force main, we'd still want to make sure we put those valves in because like you said before, you want to make sure your force main is properly operated. So again, it's a design versus a cost consideration. We tried to lay out kind of what the design criteria would be for that larger pump station. I mean, you're going to have a larger generator, you're going to have larger pumps. You're gonna pump more than you necessarily need, but like I said, you'd be able to reuse that 8 in the ground and not have to slip line 8,200 feet of pipe. So, we'll go into that assumption and document that, but we'll move forward with that option too for the design. Okay. So finally, the only other thing on the preliminary design front, I know Deb, last time we talked about the amendment and there was some work that Margot wanted to get done at the Four Corners that you had asked her to include as part of our scope. It was the right-of-way establishment. I think I'd sent that over to you a couple weeks ago. Okay.
You guys can move forward, and there's still plenty of money.
Yep.
In my grant, it's not gonna come out in the end when I'm unsure.
Yep.
Know what I mean? That money's probably gonna come out of ARPA money, I just haven't gone through the procedure, but you guys are good to move forward.
Okay.
Because I still have $600,000-700,000 left of them.
Right. If you don't mind, Deb, do you mind just sending us an email just to confirm that, say, yeah, we're good to proceed and we can move forward with that work? I know some of the amendment work was. Margot might have been, I know she had asked me to include it, but I haven't talked to her about it.
Yeah, I think they've started.
Oh, they have, okay. Okay, yeah, no, as long as I had something for the record to say, yeah, you're good to proceed, that's fine. If she hasn't, if she sounds like she started it already, so it's a moot point, but.
Clarify that.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna do what I gotta do because I mean, we're gonna get.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, no, and I think realistically, like I said, the big questions for us was just getting the survey nailed down and then getting a decision on this force main. Once those decisions are made, we're able to proceed with final design and start working on the actual meat and potatoes of this. So we just didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves without having those decisions be made. So. As far as the overall schedule, I know we talked conceptually as far as what MassWorks is looking for. They are looking at June of 24 as like that next deliverable date. So we're trying to hold to that date. So that way we can have a deliverable that you'll have for that.
I file quarterly reports, so look at it when I file the quarterly report because I didn't get started right away, so all that money got pushed to it's all about when they pay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the money. All that money got pushed to this current year, and I know we spent quite a bit quickly this year, so
Right.
maybe that. It's really just tied to the task of the money and the way they fund it. But
Okay.
They fund it each fiscal year.
Right.
Because I say I'm gonna need it.
Right.
I'm like, it's a crapshoot when I'm doing a grant. I
Right.
don't really know, I need the money. So let me go back and look at that.
Okay.
That's kind of what, and we have to be 100% done by the end of just 26.
Right.
Because of opera money, which is a
Whole nother ball game. Yeah, no, I think our schedule had indicated finishing by the end of 25. So no, but I knew like the report, like for example, when we first got on board, I knew you mentioned you wanted that report by that certain date because I was in the MassWorks grant and all that. So again, we're trying to adhere to those dates the best we can.
It runs out, I think I have until the end of 26.
Sure.
So there's a little wiggle room.
Sure.
there. I just have to go back and look.
Okay.
In fact, if you build too much, you might have to wait till after the fiscal year to get.
Sure. Now, and I know a lot of the upfront activities were a little bit of a higher cost because we had the surveyor, we had the driller, we had, everybody kind of out there.
50,000 I can spend in this year. but
Okay.
We put a good dent, we're probably at 350.
Yeah. Yep. And I know we talked last time about coordinating with Fall River on our plans for the extension, once we kind of nailed down what those flows are. So I think now that we have a good understanding of what our flows are going to be, I think it would probably be a good opportunity to meet with them and at least present what we're proposing to do. I know Paul Furlan just from working with him in Fall River. I don't know if I don't mind taking the lead on setting up a meeting, or if you folks want to be involved with those discussions.
Why don't you set up the meeting? We'd like to be there, sure.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, as far as like what we presented so far, I think we have enough here as far as flow, game plan, approach to be able to present it to them, let them know what's coming, and then any requirements for an amendment as part of the intermunicipal agreement with the town. Because I know you guys have a certain amount of flow that you are allocated. With this project, you'd be beyond that. So there'd be some discussions on that. So why don't we set up that meeting and make sure you're involved with that?
They're gonna charge you a fee? They're gonna charge a fee to get added flow?
There was an agreement based on a certain flow rate that was signed many years ago. I don't know what the terms are for the agreement offhand, but I know that once you exceed that threshold for flow, they want you to file an amendment for that.
Just asking that because when I was trying to tie in my property on 125 South Main that I owned years ago, they wanted an astronomical fee. Like, I don't even remember, very, very like an astronomical fee. So I'm just wondering if they're gonna say, okay, sure, you can have this flow, but it's gonna be $1 million fee to get this.
Well, we're already tied in, so I don't know if I don't know what, they do strange things.
I know, I'm just telling you, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that because they did that to me.
I mean, we're supposed to pay them $100 for every house that ties into our system. We never have, but that's in the agreement.
Yeah. We
Why
want to
would we pay them?
take it out.
Yeah,
It kind of depends too, right? Because we are upgrading your sewer main side on the Freetown side of the South Main Street, but then if their existing sewer piping on their side needs to be upsized to account for flow coming from you guys, there might be some discussion with sharing costs associated with upsizing their piping to accommodate flow from the rest of Freetown. So it depends. I'm sure that's going to come up once we get to that point of the conversation.
Well, it sounds like, like I said, based on my experience with them, I think it's a conversation we need to have sooner than later.
sure. Yep. Yeah, and I think now that we have the flows nailed down, we have a conceptual approach. I think it's a good time to meet with them now to have the discussion and share with them what our approach is, what our schedule is. So that way they're not caught off guard and we can have those discussions.
Are you counting on a lot of flows from the marijuana facility? Because we thought that we're gonna have a lot of flows.
Yeah.
And they were all worried about that, and then you find out there's hardly anything. They use all their water.
And we use it, but But we got-
Back in recycling, like a drip system for a whole.
Tim Keough had his engineer prepare something for us.
We reached out to them because for that exact reason, we wanted to account for that flow for any future development, including the marijuana facility. And I think they got back to you where it was the engineer that got back to you on that?
Yeah, the engineer got back to us regarding the flow, but I believe the flow number they have is preliminary because they're still also in the preliminary design phase. So that number is subject to change. But I have since you kind of keep us posted as they progress with their design process But in the meantime, I think their flow estimate is definitely better than us going and using Title V, the estimate flow. So it's the best number that we have currently, but we'll update as needed.
What would be, based on the projected flow from American, what would happen if American fed zero into that system? Would the system still be viable?
It would, the
And the
only,
reason I say it is because 10 years next psychedelic drug that, you know, people stop smoking marijuana, you know, they find something else. That
Sure.
And, you know, companies come and companies go.
sure.
So, you know, I mean, there's no guarantee, we don't have a guarantee that that's gonna be there forever.
Sure. I think the one thing about this approach, going with the 8-inch pipe, is you're gonna have a lot of excess sewer capacity, right? So by putting in a larger pump, by putting in a larger station, you're gonna have a lot of excess capacity to take in flow. And even if some of that flow was to not materialize, like you said, if American all of a sudden says, no, I'm not tying in, that would have to be accounted for in the operations of the station. So, you know, you basically reduce the amount of time for the wastewater to sit. You might have to tighten up that band a little bit as far as getting the pumps to run a little more frequently. But in general, you know, we would be able to accommodate that change. It wouldn't be like now all of a sudden you need a different pump or need a different system because you're designing for the force main, not the other way around. So it's kind of like you already have that reserve capacity built in whether you use it or not.
We're pretty much under what our agreement calls for.
Currently you are.
Off the top of my head, but
Yep.
it calls for 100,000, we're probably at 35.
That's correct.
We're under.
You are right now. That's correct. Yep. Yeah, based on these projected flows, you'd be over that though. That'd be the thing you'd have to rework that agreement. Yep. And again, I think the first step would be sit down with them, present what we have for flows and say, hey, here's what we're projecting. What, you know, what are we gonna do to amend this agreement to be able to accommodate that? But you're absolutely right. As of today, you're good.
One time we had plenty of pipe capacity
Okay,
to take more from us.
okay. Yep,
Whether, I don't, you know, that was just
sure.
in a meeting, I mean, it's
Sure.
like, well, we got a 10-inch, like, you know, whatever. But
Yeah.
he said, you know, if the time comes, we've got
Yeah.
enough pipe to handle more flow, I don't know
Right.
what the figure was.
Right, no, and I think the thought process is now that we know we're using the 8, we can nail down, okay, we're gonna send you this amount of flow, this is what the projections are, and then we can account for that as part of any sort of amendment that's done to that agreement in place. So again, I think having that conversation would be better sooner rather than later, and I'm happy to set that up and have that discussion so we can figure out what their plans are for us.
It's gonna come out of my.
No, I know obviously Fall River has a pretty extensive sewer system and, you know, I know obviously they take some flow already, so the hope would be that they have some spare capacity for us, but, you know, again, without speaking to, I don't know their system, I don't want to speak prematurely, so.
Yeah, even if their piping has enough capacity for us, it might be limited by their wastewater treatment facility because that's dictated by the NIPD's discharge permit. So hopefully they have capacity on both ends for us to discharge sewer on that.
Yeah, they have to look at their pump station, they have to look at their treatment plant, yeah, I mean, again, it's,
It sounded like they did a few years ago when we talked about. it.
sure. Sure,
Yeah, and hopefully from our conversation with them, we get that confirmation that we'll proceed.
Do you know how easy the pipe is that comes out, like the Stop and Shop through?
so right now there's 2 lines, there's a 4-inch and an 8-inch line. They're 2 pressure force mains that run parallel, and then the line that leaves that last manhole, I'm not sure, Will, do you remember offhand? Out of SMH 20 to Fall River? Is it a
Oh,
10-inch?
Like it's a 10-inch gravity. From that point onwards, we have to check the. record
Yeah.
lines, cause it's the 4 and the 8 going in. Be a 10 coming out, I don't have access.
Let me pull it up right now. Yeah, so the 2 force mains run, so this is the Innovation Way, South Main Street's here. They tie into oh, it's a 10-inch sewer. Yeah, so it's 2 lines come in and then a 10-inch runs out. And then from there it runs by gravity to Fall River. That's correct. Yep. Yep. Okay. So what we'll update our basic design to reflect using option 2. We'll look to set up that meeting with Fall River, and based on this feedback, we'll proceed with moving forward with the final design. Is there anything else we wanted to discuss before we talk about the date and time for our next meeting? Alrighty.
Do we want to adjust our time of meeting because Steve's working? Yeah.
Sure.
What schedule? Like 3:30. Would that work for you? 3:30.
3:30 works for me. I'm gonna be off the first week of April, but if I could suggest the 10th, if that works for you.
April 10th?
April 10th at 3:30?
Yeah, I should be able to make the 3:30.
3:30, I'm open.
Yeah. April 10th, 3:30?
Yeah,
Okay.
and what time?
3:30? I'll
3:30?
send out the calendar invite as well.
Helen, is there anything else you wanted to bring up on your end?
No, you have it covered, Andrew.
Great. All right, well, we'll look again to meet the 10th at 3:30, and we'll follow up with Fall River, try to set up that meeting, hopefully before we meet, but again, we'll look to see what's available and set it up, so.
Those guys don't do much over there anyway.
All righty, thank you for your time. Bye, Helen.
Bye.